The business world around us has changed. E-commerce didn't exist a decade back, and look, it's 8% of retail in this country.
Absolutely.
The way every business needs to operate today and in the future has to be digital first. Traditional management education had not kept pace. It was still designed for the offline world, right? This was a very large problem that, we had a driver's seat view too. Entrepreneurship didn't exist. I didn't want to do business. And to be very honest with you, I've never been motivated by money. One of the key drivers for a lot of entrepreneurship is money. That was never my motivation. I just wanted to be really good at what I did. And that's what, happened when I joined HUL. HUL was a lovely 14-year journey. I still say it's the place I got my business education.
Yeah, but then education is evolving as well, like it's not just those conventional things that we used to do, ki doctor ban gaye, engineer ban gaye. There's so many more opportunities that are opening up.
Yeah.
And I think you promoting that is like a great thing.
And here we are trying to build a better education system and building the highest quality education.
Hey guys, welcome to AMA Marketing. We've brought this podcast because everyone wants to talk about marketing. But what is it that you want to know is something we are concerned about. So without further ado, let's talk about today's podcast. We have a very special guest with us, Karan, who's the co-founder of AIM by DigiAxle. He's worked with HUL for brands like Surf Excel that we all dream about. So today, he will be talking about marketing, how marketing has evolved, careers in marketing, how careers in marketing have evolved, AIM by DigiAxle, which is a specialist business institute, his journey, and how you can become a brand manager. So welcoming our first guest, Karan Bhagi, co-founder at AIM by DigiAxle. Hi Karan, how are you? Tell the audience a little bit about you.
Hey Aakriti, good to be here. And, thank you for having this here, at our campus. So my name is Karan, as you know, and I'm 39, married, have 2 kids. And if I have to tell you about myself, I'll have to go way back. So my dad was in the army, so grew up in a military family, and he was a 3rd generation army person, on his mom's side. He was a very passionate soldier. Kind of did stints. In fact, he was in the field most of the time, did a lot of stuff in J&K. So why I'm telling you all of this is that me and my brother were raised by my mom. And
you look like an army kid.
Oh, I do? Okay. Yeah. I do get that a lot. Yeah. And my mom is this really competent, very caring and very bold woman. And, she came from a conservative family, so she didn't pursue a career. But I am quite a reflection of my mom. Yeah. So grew up there in an army background, traveled a lot. Had the privilege of seeing a lot of India, during the stint that my dad was in the army in.
That must be cool, right?
Oh, yeah.
Meeting so many people.
Yeah. It does, I think change of school every few years for young kids is a thing. But, yes, meeting new people, seeing parts of the country that other people go as a tourist was a lot of fun in my early years. Yeah. And I think the other thing, which was, even with this change, I think the thing that was a constant in my life was sports. I played a lot of sports growing up. So I used to play tennis. I played basketball competitively, played state, zone, national. So did play.
Nice.
Yeah. And I do feel that sports is that one foundation in my life that taught me a lot, right? So it teaches you to constantly work harder, try and keep getting better, because in sports, there's no perfect version of yourself, right? You can always aspire to do better. So I think that attitude has stayed with me, through, and that's really kind of continued as a constant part of my life. On education, I was a decent kid, growing up. I used to do decent on academics, would be in the top part of my class, went to decent schools. And then I was preparing to be a doctor, which is, which is like a total 180 degree from a career in business. But yeah, that's what it was, because in my family, everyone was either in the army or was a doctor. And, so I'd taken up medicine or bio in standard 11th. And I had done reasonably well, so I, topped the class. But then, there was a personal tragedy. My uncle, which is my father's younger brother, was a doctor. We lost him, when I was in 10th standard. And there was just insane amount of pressure, on me as a kid to become a doctor. And I crumbled in that pressure. And, and I just did not want to take the PMT for the fear of failure. That time you had PMT. That was the test everybody took, to get into a medical college. So even though I was doing well, I just did not want to fail, and I just kind of chickened out and kind of took math in standard 12th, and all of a sudden I was training to be an engineer. So imagine kind of prepping yourself for 4 or 5 years for something, and then you flip overnight, and so
from a doctor to an engineer to now an entrepreneur.
It's life kind of has its ways over this period. So I went to engineering college, so did my 12th, went to an engineering college in Patiala. It's an institute called Thapar, and spent 4 years there getting a degree. I'm not very sure of whether I studied enough to call it education, but I did get a degree from there. Got some of my most fond friendships and closest friendships there. So I think those 4 years gave me a lot of friends, but I'm not sure if they gave me a lot of skills or technical know-how, so to say. And at Thapar, I was the only one thing that fascinated me was energy. So I actually interned in the IOCL refinery at Panipat, and it was very fascinating to see, engineering that you read in books in action. You had these hundreds of feet, long distillation towers, and but it was all very polluting, and I really wanted to work on alternate energy, and that's what I wanted to do.
You're very different as a person, most of the people would be like, "Hey, boring hai, we don't want to do this," but you're finding that interesting.
No, yeah, it was interesting because I also had a cousin who worked there, and it's just amazing to see, these large places which are literally running the country from the energy that they produce, right? Because a lot of petroleum, diesel moves out of that refinery, and it was very fascinating to see. And I wanted to do alternate energy because, of course, this was polluting. And I still remember I took this decision about 90 days before the CAT that year. CAT that year was 21st November. And this was somewhere in the mid of August, that I decided to prepare for MBA. And gave my parents like this really passionate, rousing story about, following my passion and wanting a career in business, which they bought. And my father paid the second fee for me to now go to a education institute to prep for MBA, which was Career Launcher. And that is where, I joined Career Launcher 80 days before CAT. And that's where I met my wife. She'd also found this passion for MBA just exactly 80 days before. And we joined the same batch and we got to know each other. And, so Career Launcher kind of got me into a good B school.
Career Launcher gave you more than just a degree.
Exactly. Career Launcher didn't give me a degree. Like they got me a platform.
They got you a platform, but gave you more than that.
So got into FMS, and predominantly chose it because Karishma, who is, my girlfriend then, now my wife, had picked up a job in Delhi. So, FMS was just a great decision. Spent 2 years at FMS and, got into HUL. And again, look, like a lot of the other students, I had not thought about what I'm going to do later, right? So I went to FMS and all of a sudden I found myself on finding what I wanted to do. And, and here was a company whose values really matched mine. Was lucky enough to get into HUL, literally, in my summers. And then they were nice enough to, kind of give me a job. And I worked there for 14 years and, found a passion in education. Despite doing so little of it myself, and here we are trying to build a better education system and building the highest quality education,
very cool,
in marketing.
Very diverse journey, I must say. So you passed your MBA in 2008,
That's
right?
That's right.
So you always wanted to be an entrepreneur? Like you knew back then that you want to do something of your own, or was it something that came in between?
If I have to be truly honest with you, I didn't even know how to spell entrepreneur. Like I would have struggled. Like I would have got probably the E wrong or a U wrong here. And to be honest with you, in those days, there was no such thing called entrepreneurship. There was either job or there was business. Job where educated people, worked for large companies, had respectable titles, kind of wore formal clothes and went to work. And then there was business, which, people usually thought, as would require you to kind of do some shady things and, you're kind of hustling to kind of make money for yourself. And that's what the general perception about business was back then. And I just didn't want to do business, right? So entrepreneurship didn't exist. I didn't want to do business. And to be very honest with you, I've never been motivated by money. One of the key drivers for a lot of entrepreneurship is money. That was never my motivation. I just wanted to be really good at what I did. So, I was very clear I'm going to get into a nice, reputed organization where I'm going to spend some time and try and become really good at what I did. So, and that's what, happened when I joined HUL. And somewhere in the journey, you realize that all you need is, a path to financial freedom or, at least some financial security as an individual. And HUL gave a lovely path to that. I was doing well and God was kind, and I could see a path to that. So I had zero plans to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and you followed that conventional journey that we've all been taught, growing up, that, do an undergrad, do your MBA, get a job, be secure. So you did all of that.
I did. But one thing that I think at HUL became very clear to me was education. So I've been wanting to do education since my late 20s. A few reasons for it. So while I never knew I'll be an entrepreneur in the education space, but I always knew I'm going to be an educator. And I was a reasonably bright kid, but I just did not feel inspired in the colleges that I studied in. I personally felt I got my management education at HUL. And no offense to the places that I studied earlier at, because I found that inspiring, practical, and I really felt that if I could take that, there would be many kids like me who were bright but just did not feel inspired. And when I was at HUL, I would take my experiences and I started teaching at business schools. So I started teaching across business schools in my early 30s. By then, I had done some stuff that they wanted to invite me. And that was a very fulfilling part of my job. And I was also teaching actively in HUL. So, you would have this new bunch of new brand managers or a bunch of management trainees. And, and HUL would call me, would schedule sessions with them. And it was a very enjoyable part of my job. So I always knew I'm going to do education because, it's very fulfilling when people write back to you and say, hey, I learned this from you then, and it's been so useful, or I got promoted, or it helped me find a job, really adding value to others, what I wanted to do. And I didn't care whether it was, in the business space, or was it teaching math to school kids or science to school kids. I didn't really care about that. But I always knew it's going to be education. I did not know it was going to be entrepreneurship in education. But look, life has its own funny ways. And, finally, there was an idea. And, over a period of time, there was more and more conviction about the idea. And then, if it's an idea that doesn't let you sleep, it kind of nudges you slowly over the edge, and you finally take a plunge. And that was my entrepreneurship journey. Never thought I'll be one, but, here we are. But I always knew I'm going to do education.
Yeah, but then education is evolving as well, like it's not just those conventional things that we used to do, ki doctor ban gaye, engineer ban gaye. There's so many more opportunities that are opening up. And I think you promoting that is like a great thing.
Yes, the truth is that between when we started at HUL to when, in the 14 years that I spent there, the business world around me had changed. We grew up in a world, marketing in a world where, bulk of the country saw television, and that was the only most penetrated medium. And you either knew how to advertise on TV or you were not a marketer. To a point in time where, smartphones have taken over everybody's life, and, everybody's spending 5.5, 6 hours hooked onto their smartphones, consuming what is very fragmented ways of media, interacting with brands that never existed before.
Absolutely.
So, the business world around us has changed. E-commerce didn't exist a decade back, and look, it's 8% of retail in this country.
Absolutely.
The way every business needs to operate today and in the future has to be digital first. And that we could see this really large space emerging because traditional management education had not kept pace. It was still designed for the offline world, right? And this was a very large problem that, we had a driver's seat view too. Working in large companies, working in digital first businesses. At HUL, I used to run the e-commerce business for them. That was the last job that I did. And we could see this really large problem statement that married squarely with passion. And, that's why we took the plunge. And I do feel that education will evolve in this direction to be built for new age skills.
Absolutely.
And very soon I hope there are many more business institutes like us that do the same.
Absolutely, because now that business is evolving, the market is evolving, and newer things are coming in. For example, you talk about digital marketing, or you talk about AI, any of those things, these are creating more jobs. Even to run AI, you need people. So I was seeing this ad lately where it said AI took my job to the next level.
Oh, wow.
So, So I think when things evolve, it creates more avenues for more skills, more institutes. So Karan, you said that you were with HUL. So you were there for 14 years, right? So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Okay. Yeah, HUL is the single place or the single institution that I've been involved for the longest period in my life. Being an army officer's kid, I never even stayed at the same school for very long, right? So it was a very happy accident. The second happiest of my life, after kind of meeting Karishma at a coaching center. I did not even know about HUL before I went to business school, because that company is known by the brands. So we all know that company's brands, but you literally don't know about the company, right? I only discovered about them once I went to business school. Okay. And to be honest with you, I was a very accidental MBA, right? I had not thought about doing an MBA. I didn't know what careers after MBA looked like. So I didn't go in thinking I'm going to do consulting. I wasn't motivated enough by money to do investment banking. So when I went there and I kind of figured out what different companies offer, and here was this company that offered a great general management, marketing kind of a career, was called the CEO Factory, etc. It was very, how do I say, enamoring. And so that got me really excited about the organization. And, they were nice enough to hire me for an internship at the end of, during my first year. And I joined them back. And HUL was a lovely 14-year journey. I still say it's the place I got my business education. At HUL, we started off as a management trainee. I think, if I'm not wrong, it's called UFLP right now. But back in the day, it was called BLT, which was Business Leadership Trainee. See, there was no marketing there. Okay, so and we had our own names for it. Like bahut lambi training, because it was 18 months long, and there were other ones like bahut lagegi tumhari, right? Like so we had like a lot of different names for it, because it was a very intense 18-month grounding experience about this country, right? Like you came from a nice fancy business school with a fancy degree, you got a decent paying job. But what HUL had designed this program was to prepare you for what businesses in this country look like.
They take the MT program very seriously.
Oh, yeah. It is the gold standard, of management education, in this country. And to be very honest, a lot of what we've built here at AIM is really inspired by that in terms of the hands-on nature of the work. And we'll probably talk about it a bit later. Now, those 18 months was a time that I got to see parts of India I'd never seen. So I went right across cities from Bareilly to Kanpur to Etawah, and you name it in UP, I've probably been there. Did a stint across various different brands, got to go abroad, and work in an environment there for 8 weeks. And really, it was a great 18 months. After that, I started off in sales. I was the sales manager for Punjab and Haryana. And really, it was a very, very large business. And my job was to work with a bunch of people who really knew their jobs much better than I knew, right? These are a bunch of people who've been working in that city for a very long time. Some of them were my dad's age. Okay, so you really learn working with people, holding them accountable, yet adding value in a very unique way that you could. I think A was working with people, and B, the more important part there was, still, all of these were employees, right? They were getting paid by the company to do a job. But you get to work with 60, 70 distributors, who are entrepreneurs, who've invested their own money in the business. Because they are the ones who really run the business across. And, and as a 24-year-old, trying to add value to them through first principles business thinking, trying to understand their problems, giving them solutions, then hand-holding them through it, and genuinely helping them grow the business.
And convincing them that your solutions are going to work. Because when I was with L'Oreal, I literally felt the same things. I was working with people, like you said, who were like my dad's age. I was so difficult to convince them. So you really have to make ways, and, understand how to make it work.
No, look, I do feel they always acknowledge the fact that you're smart. Okay. I think, but a couple of things need to come in the way. And I learned that they have to, over a period of time, have trust in your judgment. The first couple of times are tough, but when you've been right a couple of times and a couple of things that you've done really start adding value in terms of top line, or, making somebody's job easier, or giving them line of sight to a revenue stream they might not have thought, or finding better use for their money, or freeing up some capital from their business, that's what builds trust. And I think even for young people, and there are hundreds and thousands of ASMs, I'm sure in this country right now working for large companies like L'Oreal and HUL. And that's the thing, over a period of time, if people build trust in your judgment, it becomes easier to work with them. So that was lovely. So that was about 2 years is what I did that. And then I got a call. Okay, I got a call from my coach, who is now the CEO of Amazon in this country, Manish.
Wow.
Yeah. In fact, I don't even call him by his name. For us, he's boss. Okay, so I got a call from boss, and he told me that there's this new team that we formed, and they wanted me to be a part of that team. So this was product management before product management was called that. Okay, so technology was just coming up. You had 2G internet. Okay,
Wow.
It was called Edge internet. But you could see that this will have a profound impact on business, because already HUL had a whole bunch of people who would, we digitized our workforce, we digitized a lot of operational
HUL is
flows.
very digitized. I think more than any other company in India.
Yeah, they started very early. So,
Yeah.
that process at HUL started, I think, in 2005, 2006. But this was about 2010. And, so I got a call to be a part of this team, which was called Gateway to Rural. So in 2010-11, we wanted to digitize our rural systems a lot more. We used to work with a lot of, independent entrepreneurs called Shakti entrepreneurs. How could you digitize them and build?
Oh, wow, you worked on it?
It existed. But yes, I did work on, digitization of parts of that system for a period of 2 years.
Because I've actually studied this entire system by HUL while I was interning with Godrej. So, that was actually my project to understand this digitized system of various companies. Very cool,
Yeah. So I was a part of that team for a couple of years. So I still remember going to my boss and saying, okay, what do I call myself? What do I print on my, visiting card? Those were a thing then, right? And he said, the privilege of this job is you got to print whatever you want. So,
Wow.
So I stuffed it with keywords like national program lead. Okay, so that's what my visiting card at 24, 25 read. But really that was a product manager job, okay, where we understood the business problems and designed technology for it. We built technology applications that would sit on people's smartphones and would help them conduct business. So did that for a period of 2 years. Along with that, just for spice, my job was to not just design it, but to grow it. So what is called the growth function today. So it was actually product manager plus what you would call a growth manager today. And if this wasn't enough, in those 2 years, HUL was in the middle of a very large joint venture, which was amongst the largest distribution joint ventures at that time. So my job was to, pilot it, set it up and scale it. So in those 2 years, I still remember 2 years, I took about 350 flights. So I probably
huge.
beat most consultants on the miles I flew in those 2 years. And until today, I think those were the two richest years, just in pure terms of pure learning, upskilling, or just exposure in my life. They had a very profound, impact. And I wouldn't have been doing what I'm doing today if I had not got to see the impact that technology can have on lives, very early on, during those 2 years that I did that. After that, I went more mainstream. Okay, so I became a brand manager for this brand called Pepsodent.
Had to.
Yeah. So did that for about 18 months. It was a very action-packed period. The brand was going into a very large relaunch. So that was very exciting. A lot of learning in those 18 months. And then I got called up to be the marketing manager for Surf Excel. Okay. And Surf Excel was this lovely HUL brand. And we would look at the Surf Excel brand manager or the marketing manager with envy to say, बहुत किस्मत से मिलता होगा ऐसा brand to work on and then to run. And I never thought that I would get a call to work on that brand. But, I got called up by somebody and, by Priya, she's the president for beauty for Unilever globally. And, she was nice enough to place her trust in my abilities. And, she kind of called me for that job. And, this was 2014, if I'm not wrong, 2014. And the brand was this beautiful brand, which was about 2,400, 2,500 crores at that point in time. Mass brands in the country were much larger. The leader in this country was this brand called Ghadi, which is very, very, very big in UP. And they had a great product at a mass price. And, they had very sticky consumers. But HUL had this lovely brands. We had Surf Excel, we had Rin, and then we had Sunlight, and of course we had
We've grown seeing these brands.
Yeah. So I was nice enough. It was great to be working on Surf Excel. And I did that for about 4 years. Personally, I think those from a professional standpoint for 4 great years, we managed to identify some problem statements about the brand. There's this term called penetration, which is what percentage of the country uses your brand. It used to be about 7-8% quarterly. 7-8% of the country used to use the brand every quarter in 2014. By about 4 years, we had that to over 20-22%, which was almost 3x users. Yeah. And the brand had gotten market leadership. So we were the market leaders, in detergents by the end of then. I also made brand director then.
So it was a 2,000 crore brand, you said.
Yeah.
And how much did you take it up to?
I had a small part to play in it because, of course, there were lots of other people, working in my team, in other teams. Everybody wanted to kind of take that brand larger. But I think, if I'm not wrong, I think we hit about 4,200, 4,300 crores.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was a deflationary scenario. So anyone who does home care, by and large, knows that bulk of the value growth happens during inflationary periods. So, when crude goes up, you take your product prices really up. And that's when you make, if you were selling something for 100 today, you would sell it for 120 because your underlying raw material has gone up, right? So I think that's where a bulk of the value growth happens. But those were deflationary periods. Crude was actually going down, but still we saw a lot of volume growth and value growth. Yeah, very heady periods. Surf Excel is now the largest non-food consumer brand in this country. I think it is over $1 billion in revenue. So very proud of the work that we guys did then.
Kudos to you, yeah. I think we've all grown seeing Surf Excel, and it's an iconic brand, and everyone wants to work for it, and you've kind of become the brand director for it, right?
Yeah, but look, to be very honest with you, the brand always existed. It will exist for decades to come. I was lucky enough to, kind of stand on the shoulder of people who built it till then and played my part. Added a few layers to it and, left it hopefully better for times to come. And yeah, it was a very nice period, professional period of my life. And then I was very excited about what digital could do. And this was the time when e-commerce had just started coming up. Social media usage was going up, e-commerce was just coming up, and HUL had set up a team to run e-commerce, in India. It was a small team back then, we were about 20, 22 people. And I raised my hands to run that business, and I actually waited to get the job. Usually, I was doing a very aspirational job, in the company, and, everybody was advising me, not to do like a new untested thing. But, I was very clear that I did feel that digital is going to have a large, profound impact on the way we do business. And, and I ran the e-commerce business for HUL from 2018 to 2022. Did that for 4 years. And after that, in those 4 years, we learned a lot. We worked and partnered with, every single large retailer you can think of, be it Amazon, Flipkart, Nykaa, Swiggy.
Correct.
And, in those early days, those were the days when, say, Nykaa's founders were very close. Falguni used to be very involved in the business herself, and had the privilege of, seeing people, founders like her, leaders in some of these large companies up close. And gave me a very different perspective because I'd only worked in CPG for 10 years, or what you'll call FMCG for 10 years. And, this gave me a very different, unique perspective. And then, of course, some of these retailers really scaled. And I had a ringside view to that. I learned how to grow businesses on some of these platforms, which have now become very, very, very large. And of course, learned how to build a team. Because I think we moved from about 20 people to over 100 people, in those 4 years. And some of those guys are, across all different companies, leading e-commerce businesses in different companies. Some have started their own companies themselves. So feel very happy to look back at the team and the progress that the bunch who worked on e-commerce in that period at HUL did. Yeah. So that was about 14 years at HUL. And so I think HUL gave me a lot of the business skills, a lot of the marketing understanding. But more importantly, I think it gave me a lot of conviction about my purpose, right? And because they always encouraged, teaching and going out to business schools, and they gave me a platform where I could do that even within the company, a few times a year. And I think over a period of time, I got courage that, if you could succeed in a large company like this, I got more confidence in my ability to be able to do that in a whole new industry, which was education. So I also got some courage and conviction about the purpose that I had, in that company. So a lot to thank them for.
Yeah, but that makes me, wonder and, think that you had such a successful marketing career. You were the general manager there, right? Yes. And what motivated you to actually switch from a successful marketing career to starting a marketing institute? Like, what was it that point where you thought कि यार अब तो यही करना है?
Like I told you, I'd been very passionate about education shuru se hi, right? Like from my late 20s. In fact, you won't believe it. People never believed when I told them that I'll be teaching kids when I'm 45, 46, right? So I had
Who
long...
would, yeah? You were the general manager. Who would believe that
Yeah.
you wanted to teach kids?
There were many other general managers, but yes, look, I was lucky enough to be one of them. Yeah, look, so many people actually had long-standing bets with me. So they said, we'll talk at 45. And, if you're still in this company, you'll have to buy me a beer or something. So I'm going around claiming a lot of beers and coffees, as we speak. Yeah, but I always knew I'm going to do education. Okay. HUL was a great company. I had a good career there. I had line of sight of what my next job would be. But I do feel at some stage, adding value to people's lives, became more important. And let's be real, honest. When you are in a large company like HUL, you're selling brands, but essentially you sell shampoos, you sell detergents, you sell tea, coffee, right? Those are the brands and the problems that they solve. Those are problems, but they're not very meaningful problems, right? There's somebody else selling tea, somebody else selling detergents. The impact that selling a better detergent in your life makes is just that last 1%, right? But education changes lives. Right? If somebody gets great education that opens a door to a great career for him or her, it changes that person's life. And not only that person's life, it changes the life of those 3 or 4, 5 people around that person. Yes. Right? So you can really amplify the impact that you have on human lives through education. So I wasn't growing any younger. So I did ask myself, saying, if I had to maximize, impact, would I be here, logging in the miles, kind of, making my way up? Or should I take that leap of faith and get into education, which I really wanted to? So I think that was the motivator. And per se from marketing, look, wahi aata tha. And the problem there was also very visible, right? We could see that marketing has totally changed. Business schools curriculum had not changed. They weren't even, talking about the D of digital marketing or the E of e-commerce or the G of growth marketing, right? Nobody was even talking about these things, but we know that this is what the industry wants. So we had a unique insight, we had experience, and we had passion for the problem. So I think all those three married, and we guys started this company in 2022.
That's great, yeah.
So there was an idea, there was purpose, but there was the other thing of courage, which I touched upon. And one of the big factors there for me was, Varun and Ghazal, the founders of Mama Earth, are close friends. We kind of worked together at HUL. Varun's also ex-HUL.
Oh, and, nice.
Yeah, and I used to be the sales manager for Punjab and Haryana, and he used to be the sales manager for Delhi, and we used to sit right next to each other.
You go like long back.
Oh, yeah. Probably 2009 is since when we know each other, and seeing them build out a company, and build it out with a lot of passion, with a lot of purpose, also reduce the barrier for exit out of that company or out of HUL for me. So I think that was the other part which worked. So entrepreneurs breed more entrepreneurs, and I certainly learned a lot seeing them.
Factory.
So but let me just come back to you, Aakriti. You also have a very good career in marketing, and I know you actively do stuff in education. What's been the driving force for you?
So it's a very interesting story. Back in undergrad, I was a very aimless kid, just trying to figure
unintended aim.
Yeah. So just trying to figure things out, So I thought कि चलो CV पे कुछ डालना, एक volunteer work कर लेते हैं. So I started teaching at CRI in a government school, and I thought that I would do it for like a month and just be fine with it. But then when I used to go and teach kids there, and the happiness it used to bring on their faces, it was like unmatched. I used to feel so satisfied, so happy, seeing them happy, that I continued doing that for a year and a half. And then I thought that I would someday want to do more of it. So I started my own NGO. It's called Sevam Foundation. And, during my MBA, I thought that I should, kind of start giving back to other students because, I was winning a couple of case competitions and people were coming and asking that, Aakriti, how to do it. So I thought, better time to, kind of do all of this. And, I always say that privilege is not just financial. It's also in terms of knowledge. It's also in terms of resources. And, how you can actually give back to people is, how you can contribute. So, I actively started mentoring students, whatever age group. So we mentor students from like, nursery to going up to postgrad, MBA, everywhere. So, we just try to create as much, like you said, it's all about creating that impact. So I think it's the same for me as well.
Oh no, so cool. And so cool you're doing it at such a young age. It took me a lot of years to find the courage and conviction, but so cool to see that with you. And you also teach at AIM now.
Yes. Yeah. And it's something I really look up to. So, coming here, teaching these kids and, kind of trying to understand. So it's also gives me a perspective in their minds as to what are they looking for in marketing next, and that helps me make my campaigns better as well. So it's like a learning, curve for both of us. Yeah. But, let's talk more about AIM, the place that we are at, tell us more about it.
Oh yeah, look, AIM or Altera Institute of Management, is a offline institute by the parent company DigiAccel. And through this, we really want to build the next generation of marketing leaders in this country. Now, what is different about this institute is that it's a specialist business institute. Our whole thesis is that the MBA is a very wide, but shallow program. It's really an interdisciplinary or a cross-disciplinary program where you study 24, 30 courses over a 2-year period, but you really go into 0 to 20 of most of them. But in the industry, what we saw was as technology has grown, jobs have become more and more specialized, right? So today, if you just look at marketing, there are so many different elements about marketing. There is, say, the classic brand management, there's innovation management, there's growth marketing, there's performance marketing, there's social media marketing, then there's sales. Sales is of different types, right? And then if you go back, there's product management, which was really, think of it like brand management for technology products, because essentially you do the same job, but for technology products, right? And not really for physical ones, which you did in the age-old classic brand management way, right? So we could see that skills needed were specialized. And, we felt that if you had to prepare the next generation of talent for roles like growth marketing, brand management, or digital first brand management, if I may call it like that, or product management, you really needed a very different curriculum, because these are the 3 or 4 fields where there's a massive talent shortage in the industry. And even an aspirational organization like the one I worked for really struggled for talent, in these fields, because there is no talent in the market. Now, fundamentally, it's a demand-supply problem, right? You have very high demand for a talent, but there is no existing supply. The only supply you have is people who already know how to do it. And how did they learn?
Absolutely.
Because they did it themselves and figured out, just by experimentation, right? That can't be a system for education. So we saw this massive space in building specialist talent, and AIM does exactly that. So it's a specialist business institute for marketing and product talent. What we do here is we run our 1-year PGP in applied marketing. It's an industry-backed program. So there are companies like HUL, Mama Earth, the Millennial Lintas group that have officially backed the program. And essentially, AIM and everything that we do is different in 3 unique ways. I think the first one is our curriculum. 100% of our curriculum is designed industry backwards by experts, from companies like Amazon, HUL, GSK, Bain, Goldman Sachs, you name it, we've had people who've contributed to the curriculum. You've contributed to the curriculum, on certain parts, right?
And that's actually bridging the gap between theory and practice.
Absolutely, which gets me to the second point, which is our pedagogy, right? Which is the how you teach, or, how kids or how students learn. Which is learning by doing. We believe that marketing or business is not learned by theory, but by application.
Absolutely.
That's why our program is actually called Applied Marketing. And, and there are very few applied business programs in this country, because that's not the fundamental philosophy, So At a pedagogical level, everything that we do is learning by doing, is application first. So students actually learn, by doing things that people do at work every day. So when they learn from you, you know that they go back and build out their own projects, build out their own business. 80% of our students right now are doing live projects with different companies,
Wow.
with founders and leaders in different product and brands and startups, mostly in the consumer space, right? So that's the second. And third is 100% mentor taught. We are we probably might be the only business school in India which is 100% industry taught.
Wow.
Every single session is taken by an industry person and not an academician. And nothing against academicians, but we really asked ourselves, if we wanted to learn how to bat, would we want to learn it from Harsha Bhogle or from Rahul Dravid? And look, I love Harsha Bhogle, but if I had to learn how to bat, I would want to go and learn it from Rahul Dravid, right? He's been there, done that. And that's what our philosophy is, saying, get students to learn business from people who built out their own business, and in that conversation, in the everyday learning, the perspectives that students build, is the unique thing about the student experience at A.
No, absolutely makes sense. So today, even when we are hiring brand managers or, anywhere, even for like smaller roles, implementation is something that you still have to teach every single day at office, and it's only people who are experienced would actually know how to actually create that Excel or that, campaign, or what to do actually, how to measure the ROI or the impact. I think it's very few people who can, do that without experience.
Yeah. And exactly feedback like that is what we've been getting from mentors here. Because when people come and teach here, one of the constant feedback we get from mentors, and by the way, some of them here, take guest lectures even at the top business schools in this country. I think what they come back and tell us is that the depth of conversations that they are able to have with our students, they can't have even at the top business schools. Why?
Wow.
Because we go very deep in what we do, right? So it's a practitioner-run business school. So our students talk about stuff in growth marketing that, most institutes don't even touch, right? They'll be talking about acquisition strategies and, growth funnels and, what is the right trigger or what is the right barrier and what should be the right copy for a particular ad, like the kids here, that's the kind of stuff.
No, absolutely. And I would back that up because I have these similar conversations with the students, and, they always catch me off guard with some question that I think that, how are they doing this? This is something we do at office. Today someone was showing me an Excel and I was like, that's so cool that, you're using and making that Excel today, which you're supposed to do in office. So I would really back that up.
Yeah, no. So to be honest with you, through AIM by DigiExcel, we want to set the gold standard for marketing and product education in this country. And we will always be a tight batch of students, and we really hope to have some of India's largest companies queuing up for our talent. So far, so good. Our first batch is going to graduate later this year. We are taking admissions for a second batch, and the kind of interest that it's got from the industry is absolutely insane. We have companies coming here hiring at the same level as the IIMs. So
wow,
it's
that's awesome.
Yes, and the top IIMs. Yeah, so really excited to see what some of our students kind of go out and do in the world, and really make a name for themselves.
Yeah.
And we look back at it in the institute as points of pride, and
Nice.
hopefully we'll create a lot of those stories in years to come.
Absolutely. And let's go a little deeper into marketing as to why you chose marketing as a specialization for a program.
Yeah.
And most of the students don't even know that they want to do marketing before they enter their MBA. So how did you think and come up with that concept?
No, cool. Let me first start off with what marketing really is, because there are a lot of misconceptions about marketing. Marketing is the study of the full value chain of activities, right? And I'm not giving a textbookish definition, but my understanding, right from problem statement identification to innovation to testing to getting a MVP in place, to scaling, and within scaling making different decisions on distribution, media, content, creatives, and then constantly looking at consumer feedback, doing that better, doing more innovations, and then finally in the whole process making money from it, right? Because you eventually deliver a top line goal and a bottom line goal, as hopefully you do it better than the next person. So the whole end-to-end value chain is marketing. Most people feel that marketing is sales. That's not marketing. That's sales. It's a very small subset of marketing. Right? Many people feel that marketing is digital marketing. Running ads is marketing. But that's not marketing. That's digital marketing. Exactly. Some people feel social media marketing and making reels is marketing. That's not marketing. That's content marketing, right? I'm sure you get that a lot.
Absolutely. I get so many questions like these. So it's like insane.
So all of these are small subsets, but the study of the whole end-to-end value chain is what marketing really is. And I think the education for that is massively outdated, right? The default textbook across most business schools was written in the late 1960s, and has not undergone a major change since then. And we know what's happened to technology in the last few years and how much marketing has changed, how much building a brand or building a business has changed. And really, it really needed an upgrade. So that's why we decided to do something about it and give the traditional marketing MBA an upgrade. And that's what AIM does. It's given the traditional marketing MBA, an upgrade. To be honest with you, I think students, as you rightly said, students don't know what they want to do when they come in. So they don't know they want to do marketing. And I think the marketeers have done a terrible job of marketing, right? Because if you see the number of people who talk about it online, there are very few. But yet you have so many podcasts about, say, product management or UI UX or on design, right? These are all fields which, are great fields, but in the absolute size are much smaller than what marketing.
And rather there's negative marketing about sales, how people cannot get into marketing jobs because they're in sales or they have to do sales to get into marketing. There are like so many of these misconceptions out there right now.
But the truth is that 60% plus of all jobs that students get out of a business school are in marketing or a vertical of marketing, a small, part of marketing. You just need to look at, the placement report of any business institute and you will get to that. Forget the ones at the top. I think, consulting and banking is quite overrepresented there. So you probably have half the batch going in consulting, say in the top 3-4 business schools, and probably marketing or general management or product management together, it will be about 30-40% of it. But as you get down to, say, the 10th, 11th, 12th and beyond that, it's all 60% of all jobs are marketing. And that's where the talent requirements are. And that's where the requirements are changing very quickly.
Absolutely. And how has your experience really influenced the curriculum of the program?
Okay, sure. Look, we are a practitioner-led, practitioner-taught business school, right? Over the 14 years that, I spent in marketing and product management, I think what we managed to get was a very sharp understanding on the building blocks that it takes to build a business, right? So you would have various different building blocks. Innovation is a building block. Consumer testing is a building block. Media deployment is a building block. Communication creation is a building block. Technology management is a building block, right? Design is a building block. So we got unique insights into these building blocks that are really needed to run a business. And we, of course, having worked with some of the leading companies, our founding team comes from some of the leading companies, in the country. We also understood what the companies did on each one of these building blocks, right? And what we did was we reverse engineered it to a curriculum to say, hey, if you could really pick up what some of the best companies do really well that makes them the best and reverse engineer it into a curriculum, and then you run students through a very intense program for a year, what would that do for talent building? And of course, all of this talent is going to go back to the industry, right? So as I said, we are absolutely industry backed, industry influenced, and hopefully our students will go on and solve the talent problems of the industry. So I think A was this whole insight on what the curriculum should be. I think B is also because of having worked in it so long, you also understood what problems are there, much more deeply, much more intricately, which gives you a unique perspective and insight on what to solve for.
Right.
So I think by marrying this understanding of curriculum along with unique problem statements that are likely to come up, we've built out this curriculum and a pedagogy to build leaders in marketing and product management, in the future, coming out of this institute. Yeah.
That's nice, yeah. So Karan, let's go a little deeper into marketing. Let's discuss as to what brand managers do.
Okay. I'll give you a 101 and a dummy's definition to brand management, which is a brand manager makes a set of decisions to run a business. Now, these decisions could be of different types. These decisions could be decisions about innovation, saying, what are the unsolved problems, what are the unmet needs, and where do you want to innovate? These decisions could be around communication, saying, how do I communicate this proposition to consumers? What should my assets look like? What should my content strategy be? Social media strategy be? These could be about running the P&L or deployment decisions, saying, where do I invest in media? What should my pricing be? What do I need to do as a roadmap of maybe cost-saving actions, right? So all of these set of decisions that help a business run and eventually deliver three metrics, right? You either deliver a top line, which is your absolute sales. You either deliver bottom line, which is your profits, or you deliver share, which is doing it better than the next guy, right? Essentially, a brand manager takes a set of these decisions, maybe all of them, or maybe you could be doing one part of it, and helps grow the business. Now, you might ask me, why is it called brand management then and not business management, right? The truth is, if you see consumer categories, consumer categories, in any category, there's many players who operate, right? So if you take, say, a category like soaps, there would be various players, right, from Dettol, Lifebuoy, Hamam, Godrej. Everybody is trying to, operate in soaps, but they do it with a very unique offering. You might have a different product. You might be operating at a different price. Might be operating with a very, very different media mix, right? So you have an offering, a unique offering that you want to take to consumers. And brand is that envelope in which you wrap all of this, right? Now, in a consumer brand, that envelope or that offering is very important because over a period of time, people associate you as that offering, right? So it might be creds around quality, it might be creds around trust, and how strong that unique offering to consumers is, which is what is called the brand, is what determines, how profitable that business is going to be. Right? Because, if consumers trust you, they come back to you. If they come back to you, you eventually invest lesser and lesser in retaining them. That's how you make the money, right? So noise is not just a smartwatch. There are 20, 30 others like them. But, noise over a period of time stands for something in the consumer's mind. And that envelope around, innovation, maybe design, etc., is what they pay a premium for, which is why, you work for that company, which today, also is one of the few bootstrapped success stories, in the country. Would love to hear your perspective because you are a brand manager. And you also hire very often for marketing roles. What do you think does a brand manager do today, in a very, very digital first or a D2C company?
As per me, it's not just about communications. As a brand manager, it's not about just a social media campaign or just a one-off campaign. It's more towards growth marketing, I would rather term it, wherein it's a lever. Marketing should be treated as a lever for growth and, creating more business for more revenue, right? And that is how, we function towards a sustainable growth as well. And I, as a marketer, even train people and train my subordinates as well in a way that they should look at it through a lens wherein we can create more avenues for growth. And it's not just about, today, like for brand managers, it's like you said, it's a collective decision. It's about creating a successful campaign, right? But it's not intuition driven now. It's very data driven as to how can you optimize and, kind of bring out the maximum out of the resources that you have. Because, as people think marketers just spend money, it's all about budgets, right? But it's not about that. It's about optimizing that budget and making the most out of it and, delivering the maximum value. So I feel that is, how we should look at a brand management role. And that is precisely what we do. We take decisions that help, brand become bigger, in not just in terms of just revenue or just brand value, but together as a combination of both.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's absolutely right. Most people have this misconception about brand management being, one of those verticals like content, social media, etc., like you mentioned, and it's just so wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do want to add one point though, Aakriti, which is that you mentioned that a lot of it is about growth marketing, etc. Absolutely. I think, a lot of the decisions today that were earlier being made just on instinct or with the lack of data can be made so much better with data, around deployment decisions, etc. But in my mind, there are two parts to it. One is this whole part about doing existing things better, be it deployment, cost efficiencies, acquisitions, retention, so many things that you can do better. You look at data, make better decisions, and add those 5-10% of efficiency to it, and you run a tighter ship. But I think nuanced marketers, will always rely on the gut. And what does that mean? Gut doesn't mean what you feel, right? Essentially, I still feel that a lot of the 0 to 100 unlocks don't sit within the data. In fact, averages hides them. Okay. The best innovation ideas, you might have a 4.5 rated product on Amazon, but the best innovation idea will come from those 5 one-star reviews where somebody is passionately telling you, saying, I wish your product had ABC, because those are innovation ideas for others, right? They may or may not be scalable, which is what, you have to take a punt on as a marketer. But I've often seen that averages hide what are truly great ideas. Every time somebody comes to me saying, somebody has got this one problem, but it is only one. We have, say, 2,000 users. I'm like, look, it's not that there's only one problem. It is one person cared enough to tell you about the problem. Imagine how strongly he or she feels about the problem, right? So that is something that becomes a must to solve. Very often, we tend to overlook this within the averages and being that data minded. But I think a lot of marketing and brand management is also about looking at these pieces of anecdote. They might be very small, but they are the ones that give the most brilliant innovation ideas, communication ideas. And that's the big unlock that, marketers also add or deliver to business.
Absolutely. I think it's knowing about the pain points of your consumer. And as a marketer, even this is a practice I very often do. Wherein I talk to people, I try to understand their problems as to why, there is a certain trigger, why are they buying something, why are they not buying something, and how can we add value. So as a brand manager, that is also something we do, wherein we connect with not just influencers or consumers, and try to understand about their perspective. So, but Karan, that brings me to my next question. How can you become a brand manager? Like, a lot of people ask me that question, and it's so confusing for people. So just you help us out there.
Yeah. If you look at brand management or marketing per se, right? The top jobs, have been very specialized. So the top companies have very limited requirement for them. And so far, or for bulk of the last few decades, they've just been going to the top institutes, top business schools, and been hiring for those talent, right? Now, essentially, why do they do that?
Yeah, and that's a very valid misconception also, that brand managers are hired from tier 1 colleges and no one else can become a brand manager.
Part of it is truth, but increasingly that's changing very quickly. Yeah, I think, look, why do those guys get selected is, it's probably less at the top. Business school will teach you frameworks, will teach you first principles, problem solving, etc., which de-risks the hire for the organization. So, like if that guy has gone to these top 8, 10, 12 business schools, they're in the top 2 percentile of the country. So, they probably have better ability to figure it out. That's the only thing that guarantees. It does not guarantee skill, by the way. Yeah? And all of us who worked in the industry kind of know that along, which is actually the reason why all top companies built a management trainee program. Essentially, if top business schools were also training you enough for brand management, you would pick up a guy and put him on the brand from the next day, right?
Yeah.
But you still run them through a 12, 18-month program. Why do you do that? Because those institutes also teach you basic frameworks.
Yeah.
But eventually you have to bridge that gap between what the brand or what your business needs and what you've been taught in the business school, which is what they use that bridge program, so to say, right? And that is the starting point of how this has been done. But what is happened is that this whole field has changed very, very quickly. through technology, right? And as we've been discussing, there are so many specialized verticals, skills have totally changed. What you need to look at to make a decision is totally changed.
Yeah.
How you build a brand is totally changed. So brand management has also become very specialized, very different now.
Yeah.
And companies are very open to hiring talent that's not gone to top B schools, but is a deep specialist with one of them. That is exactly the problem that we are trying to solve here at AIM by DigiAxel, which is, build people with these deep pockets of expertise, that find careers in top companies. And, and I'm actually very happy to say that today, as our students are undergoing placements, some of India's top companies are hiring for brand management roles,
Wow.
From our institute. And that's let's see how eventually things shape up, but as of now, that's what it is. We have so many people, so many JDs for our students at this point in time. You do that. In fact, you hire on the other side while we prepare students for these roles. You're a hiring manager yourself. Maybe you could also share with some of the audience on what it takes to be a brand manager in today's time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Karan, till now, I knew only 3 ways as to how someone could become a brand manager. You've added like a 4th lens to it. But as per me, earlier, first, people used to come from tier 1 colleges, like we're discussing, how they became brand managers. Second was they rise from different experiences. They join as a, social media associate. They become like an influencer marketing manager. Then they, kind of transition into a brand manager role, or then people transition, like the third bit of it would be from sales, they would transition to a, like you've done, right?
Yeah.
From sales, you've transitioned into a brand manager. So till now, I knew only 3 ways of doing it. But now, like you're saying, it's evolving. There's so many institutes, that actively, like yours, are trying to, build this gap wherein if someone is not from a tier 1 college, how can they become brand managers? And I think recently only I was discussing with my HR, that we should, kind of go to AIM and, try and see if we can get brand managers from there. I think you've opened a 4th lens for me.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. We are here to solve the industry's problems,
Absolutely.
through great talent. And hopefully we'll build many leaders in marketing coming out of this institute in years.
Absolutely. But Karan, how do you think the brand managers of today would differ from brand managers of, let's say, 2004?
Okay. I wouldn't know 2004. Okay. I wasn't, I wasn't around in brand management.
Let's say 2010. Yeah.
Like pretty much that's when I started off, in brand management. Okay. Look, I think that essentially the set of things that people needed to do have stayed very similar. Okay. I think you mentioned innovation, we mentioned communication design, and we mentioned what is growth, or what, I was referring to as deployment, right? These are 3 things on what you make, what you tell consumers, and, what is the way that you take that mix to market to them. I think that has essentially stayed the same. The activities have stayed the same. The way they've been done has been totally, changed with, everybody having a smartphone and spending a large part of their life there, right? So in 2010, if you wanted to be a great brand manager, you had to crack TV. Everybody was on TV.
Yeah.
You had to know how to hook consumer attention on television through, 30-second beautiful storytelling. And then, you would run a slightly smaller cut down so that you could tell more and more people about it. But essentially, you had to hook consumer attention in a unique way through television advertising. That was the bedrock.
Yeah, and that was done majorly by agencies, right? And the brand manager's job was to, kind of coordinate doing that, right?
Yeah, I think the brand manager's job was to find that consumer insight on, what was that burning problem that they wanted to solve through their brand, and then work with partners who were specialists in communication or in media planning, in either designing great comms for it or taking it to market, through the right mix of, what media vehicles or channels you would use. So essentially, it was very television centric. But if you look at today, Aakriti, I think the brand manager's job is much, much, much tougher.
Yeah.
Okay. Because essentially what has happened is today the barriers to entry to any industry have gone down many-fold, right?
Yeah.
Earlier you had very few beauty brands, you had L'Oreal, you had, a lot of HUL brands. But today, there are so many beauty brands because it's become so easy to make a brand.
Absolutely.
Right? Your GTM is totally democratized. The minute you start selling on Amazon or Flipkart, you're available to 97-98% of this country. Earlier, it would take you decades to build distribution to get there. The minute you are on, say, Facebook, you are there for almost 50% of, people above a particular age in this country, right? So digital platforms have made it so easy for people to build brands. But what that's meant is that competition has increased massively.
Yeah.
The second thing, what it's meant is that consumer attention is very fragmented.
Yeah.
Earlier people would spend a large part of their time watching TV, and then they would do a bit of print, a bit of radio, some of those things they would do. But today, even on digital, you will probably be spending time on so many apps. You would be, maybe spending Instagram for something, you would be spending time on YouTube with some context, maybe on Quora with some context, maybe on other forums, e-commerce sites, right?
Actually, there's a fact about this, that today a consumer's attention is lesser than that of a goldfish. So goldfish's attention is 8 seconds, as we as consumers today have a attention span of 7 seconds.
Wow. Who would have thought of that, right?
Yeah.
So imagine the brand manager's job has become so tough. Earlier, you had the luxury of 30 seconds to make a television commercial.
Correct.
Now you have to tell the same story, if not better, in 6-7 seconds before you lose the goldfish-minded consumer, right? So essentially, the job has become much tougher because media has become fragmented, attention's become fragmented, competition has increased. Jobs actually become much more tougher now. So it's become much tougher, much more specialized. And I do feel that if people want to get into brand management, they have to master some of these different parts. So I think the job is very different than what it was in 2010. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's also about enhancing your skills. So what skills do you think should a brand manager have
Actually, before
today?
we get there, let me ask you. I was a brand manager back in the day. You're a brand manager today, like in 2024. How is brand management different in 2024 than what you heard it used to be earlier?
That's a very interesting question, Karan. So I think as a brand manager of today, right, our job is to actually grab the attention of the consumer. I would just sum it in that one sentence. Like we were discussing, the attention span is so less, right? And the consumer touch points are so many now. People are interacting with so many things. You would be interacting with an Instagram reel, and instantly you would be interacting with a podcast and listening to a podcast. There's so many avenues that have opened up, right? How do you grab the attention of the consumer in such a crowded space with so many brands advertising every single day? It's such a tough job. So I think, to summarize, it's to grab the attention in the first 2-3 seconds. And how we do it is, we try to innovate. We try to bring out the best possible campaigns, award-winning campaigns, right? We brainstorm for hours trying to find that one consumer hook, that the consumer would, kind of come and stop. You would see so many reels, people saying, okay, stop, or, doing certain other actions just to grab that 1 second of attention. So I think that is one of the biggest things that we do. And as a brand manager, I make it a point to understand the consumer journey today, right? So how the consumer is moving. So you also call it design thinking, right? Wherein you're actually involved in the lives of the consumer, wherein you're trying. So for example, if you want to advertise for tea, right, we would actually go and sit in a room with that person and understand what is he having with the tea, or what is he consuming, what conversation he's having over tea, and how can we integrate in their lives in that particular time or in that particular time frame or occasion, right? So I think it's changed to do a lot with the consumer. It's also changed how to do it in more innovative ways. And in, like you were saying, that gut feeling that only comes when you interact and, kind of get to know those consumer pain points and, those occasions wherein you can actually integrate yourself and be useful to that consumer. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I know it's tougher, and I'm also sure it's more fun
It's
because
very fun.
when you're able to solve such a complex maze of challenges and still come up with great products or great business outcomes, I'm sure it's very exhilarating.
No, absolutely. And today with the Gen Z, right, all of them are so different. So for example, for millennials, we would say this is the kind of generation who would do this. You've defined that, right? But with Gen Z, it's so different because each of them have their individual traits, their individuality, their own personal, choices, and it's so varied. And to combine all of that and come up with the campaign to attract all of them, it's very fun, but it's also tough. But I think the brainstorming sessions, working with different teams, like for example, we would work with the tech team and say that, okay, bring this product so that this feature or this product so that we can market it. Right there also we have a say now. We can go to any team, customer service team, and say, okay, do this so that we can do enable certain other part of marketing. So, and also personal branding coming into the picture, right? With helping founders do so much, and that's also part of marketing. So I think it's diversified, it's become more fun, and you're able to do a lot more. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Hearing all of that coming from a Gen Z herself is, very different. You find it tougher to market to your own kind than people like me, who are the millennials, right? So that's kind of really, I wouldn't have thought about that. I thought you would find it very intuitive and easy to market to people like yourself. Yeah.
No, I think all of them are very different from one another. So it takes a lot to kind of go and understand. You won't even understand their texts, the way they write, whatever acronyms they use or short forms they use, it's so different and so difficult to, kind of comprehend. Yeah. But that brings me, what skill sets do you feel should brand managers have? Like, okay, I'm a practicing brand manager, but I still have a lot of scope to learn, right? I would like to learn from you as to what skills should today's brand manager have to make it into a successful brand management career.
Sure. I think the first skill, I don't know whether to call it a skill or to call it an attribute, is consumer empathy. I think that will never ever change, right? You have to understand your consumer. You have to understand all layers of your consumers, because I think that is the first unique thing that allows you to figure out how to, kind of understand the pain point or address them or build products that will be loved by them. In most cases, what people don't realize is you are not the consumer. So when, I would be working on, say, a detergent brand, remember, I'm not the eventual TG who buys it. It's that 24 to 35-year-old housewife living in tier 2 India who eventually goes and buys it. But as somebody, who's a reasonably privileged, late 20s, early 30s male living in Bombay, you had to literally shed what your biases, experiences were like, and understand that consumer, understand their life to be able to create products, communication, pricing, the mix that worked for them. So I think the first big skill is consumer empathy that people must
Absolutely
have. I think the second skill, as you increasingly mentioned, is a very, very data-driven mindset. Eventually with technology, you're able to track people, track their actions, and the way you market to audiences has changed quite dramatically. It has become a lot more, data centered. You're able to run campaigns with a lot more feedback from audiences or from your TG that you could do earlier. So I think having a very strong data foundation is good to have. Of course, you have different kinds of brand management roles in innovation that probably does not require so much of that. It requires a lot of, say, what is called possibilities mindset. So could you do without that? Yeah, sure. But does it help to have that to become a more holistic, well-rounded brand manager? Absolutely. I think it absolutely does. And I think the third part, which, is very important as a skill or again, as a behavior, is a learning mindset, right? Eventually, things are changing so quickly. What brand management was, or what the key things or the ways to deliver growth, even for a particular TG or audience, was about 3 to 4 years back, will be very different today. Forget 3-4 years, in 2 years it changes. Competition changes, the e-commerce platforms or the media platforms change, their algorithms change. What worked on social media 2 years back does not work today, right? So absolutely, and kind of staying on top of the game by constantly learning is the third thing that people need to kind of build. Now, some of these might be very, how do I say, not very objective, okay? Because the truth is, it is a field where you learn by doing, right? You learn by doing, so you learn by you do, you learn, you do again, and you learn again, right? So it's that field where you build a lot of muscle or your skills by doing. Also by working with other smart people who are doing it, right?
Absolutely.
Observing other practitioners in action. So I think the way to build these skills is these two. So get into a job where you get to do stuff or work with really smart people who do things like these. Or you come join us, at AIM, students are only taught by practitioners. I teach at the institute, Alec, who's the co-founder, he teaches, people like you teach. There's so many smart people, marketers who teach here, that students get that first-hand experience that allows them to, learn these skills firsthand and kind of emerge from this program a very, very different marketer.
That's very nice, So as per you, what has been your biggest learning and what advice would you give to aspiring marketers?
I've had two learnings through two experiences that have stayed with me. I think my first biggest learning is that talk is cheap and you have to act. Like, don't talk, just act, right? And I think where this came from was, I think it came from my product management days, right? And, there was this massive meeting where we'd launched something in market and, our customers had not taken to it. The adoption was just really, really poor. And, we were all sitting and trying to dive deep into the problem to understand why are people not adopting this product, right? So we launched this one application in rural India. And remember, the user of the application was this, 35 to 40-year-old individual entrepreneur sitting in a 5,000 population village. And, they weren't getting on the app. And I remember, in that meeting, one very bright, smart person, stood up and said, I think. And then he went on, and the leader in the meeting, the person who was running the division, was very patient. He heard the individual till the end. And then he asked him, he said, so how many users have you met? How many people have you seen interact on the product? And his answer was one. Okay. And he said, look, we don't pay you to have a point of view only. We pay you to act on that point of view and know for sure, or at least, to a high degree. So don't just have a point of view. Act on it with rigor to try and validate or disvalidate that hypothesis. So I think that piece where, it's very easy to have a point of view. Everyone today can have a point of view. It's very tough to have an informed point of view, and even tougher to have a point of view from experience where you actually worked on. So I think that's the first one, which is, don't just talk, act, right?
Yeah.
I think the second big learning, and this probably is my biggest learning as a marketer, is humility. Very often we put stuff in market, which we love. Okay, otherwise we wouldn't have put it out, right?
Yeah.
Like when you work on a product or on a brand for, those 8-10 hours a day, it becomes a very large part of your life. So you automatically start thinking it's a very large part of the consumer's life as well. But the truth is that consumer might not be thinking day in, day out, like it. You probably do because you get your salary from it, or, you're a founder who's running that full time. And I think this insight came for me, on Surf Excel, we had launched this 10 rupee price point easy wash powder. And it took off, it took some time, but then it took off like hotcakes. And it was a single biggest reason that got consumers to enter the brand. And once they entered the brand, they loved the product. Then they, went on to buy more larger packs, which is where we really made the money, on the brand. There was this part in Maharashtra, which was Vidarbha, where this pack was just not taking off. So like any good brand manager, I planned a consumer home visit. And, for 3 days, we parked ourselves in Vidarbha, went, to different 20,000 population towns. And, in one of them, I still remember. And of course, remember the person who's buying a 10 rupee price point powder is not the most affluent. You are talking to your India 3 consumer. You're talking to a household that makes 15,000 rupees a month, or maybe even 10 to 15,000 rupees a month. That's the household you were talking to. So we were sitting in this interview with this one housewife, and, we were probing on, why did she not buy the 10? Why did she not buy the 10? And I think there was a point in time where, she kind of got a little, there's this, keep asking till the time you uncover the real thing. It's a classic, interviewing technique, right? And I think there was a point in time where she said, look, let me be honest with you. We said, because, by the way, the other thing about these interviews is that people don't want to look stupid in front of the interviewer.
Absolutely.
So a lot of times they tend to make stuff up to try and sound smart, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so you have to uncover those onions, which is why those layers, which is why you keep asking why. So I think there was beyond a certain point in time, she stood up and she said, look, let me be really honest with you. She said, 10 rupees means a lot for me. She said, rather than spending 10 rupees on your, detergent powder, if I had 10 rupees, what all I would do? I would first stop carrying my groceries 1.5 kilometers, which I walk today, and I'll take a rickshaw. That's the first place where I'll spend the 10 rupees. She said, if I had the 10, I would give it to my kids and get them to buy some sweets or some chocolates for them, because the joy on their face means a lot to me.
Wow.
She said, if I had those 10 rupees, I would probably recharge my phone without having to tell my husband or asking him for it, right? Because every time I ask him for it, she says, I know times are tough. I feel bad asking him for it, and it just made me feel so small, because here I was going to her, to ask about this problem, on something I spent my life on. But in her life, that just did not matter as much, right?
Yeah.
Just staying humble and just listening to the consumer and really, having the humility while you are doing what you do, I think just is a very, very important learning I've had in marketing.
Absolutely.
And this incident has, stayed with me all my life. I have goosebumps as I talk about it, because it just constantly gets you grounded. It also made me feel very thankful for my life, right? Because we don't have to worry about some of these things. So it's always, also such visits would always make me feel very thankful for what I had in life. Yeah.
Oh yeah, thanks, Karan. I think we every single day, talk to consumers, and that is a lens we don't apply, because we're always probing them to tell the problem or talk about their finances. We ask them about their incomes and stuff like that, as brand managers, because we feel, ये हमें बताएंगे तो हम product ऐसे market करेंगे and stuff like that, But yes, humility is something that's very important in today's time, and not just for marketing, but everything in general in life. Yeah. So what advice would you give to like aspiring marketers?
I think if there's one piece of advice that I would just give to them is just keep learning. Keep learning, because everything around us changes so quickly that the life cycle of what you know today, how long that stays valuable for, is really crunched, right? So I think just being curious, having a learner's mindset, we're constantly learning about your craft. It could be anything, it could be brand management, product management, growth marketing, it could be anything, right? But just looking at people who are doing the best job out there, constantly learning, constantly keeping on building your skills, and then constantly trying to add value. I think this whole learner's mindset is just super, super important in today's time. You can't sit back on what you know and think that this will carry you through your career.
It's so evolving nowadays, right? Technology is evolving, and we have like so many other things happening around us. Like evolution is something that's we are based on, and we need to like kind of include it.
Yeah. Earlier what would happen was this gap between what the industry needed and what you were taught always existed, right? It always existed. But usually what would happen is that the life cycle of what you know today would be much longer. It could maybe see you through 10 years, and then you would need to reskill yourself. That is just compressed so much that now it's so important to have that mindset on just constantly learning.
Yeah. So thanks, Karan. That brings us to the end of this podcast. Thank you so much for taking out the time and sharing such valuable insights with our audience. So I think,
Oh no, the pleasure is all mine. And, thank you for doing this podcast and, kind of bringing out some real true insights on the world of marketing to, people who want to build a career here. Much needed. Marketers need to market the field better.
Yeah, absolutely.